I sat at the mahogany conference table, surrounded by 12 board members in their tailored suits. My father-in-law, CEO Gerald Thompson, stood at the head of the room, his eyes locked onto mine with cold precision. "You're fired. Poor results." Security escorted me past colleagues who suddenly found their phones fascinating. That night, my husband Brandon slid a printed list of homeless shelters across our granite kitchen counter. "You're on your own now," he whispered. I walked out quietly with one suitcase. I didn't look back. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you want to hear how I turned this nightmare into victory, hit that like button and subscribe, because what comes next will shock you. Trust me, you won't believe how far they tried to take me down. The neon sign of the roadside inn flickered outside my window that first night. I had $300 left in my personal account. Everything else was joint accounts Brandon had already locked me out of. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and broken dreams, but it was all I could afford. I spread my termination papers across the scratchy bedspread. Something didn't add up. According to Gerald's presentation to the board, my product launch had failed spectacularly. Customer satisfaction was at 23%. Sales projections missed targets by 60%. Returns were through the roof, but that wasn't right. I had personally tracked every metric. Our luxury smart home system had received rave reviews. Customer satisfaction surveys showed 87% approval. We had exceeded our sales targets by 40% in the first quarter alone. I had the data on my personal laptop, backed up religiously because I never trusted corporate servers. My hands shook as I opened my backup files. There they were. My original reports. My real numbers. Everything I had submitted showed success after success. So what had the board seen? I called Maya, my former assistant. She was 24, brilliant, and one of the few people who had looked genuinely upset when security marched me out. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. "Rose," she whispered, "I can't talk to you. They made me sign an NDA. Maya, please. I just need to understand what happened." Silence stretched between us. Then, barely audible, "Check your project files from the last 6 months. The versions that were presented to the board." "I'm sorry, Rose. I have to go." The line went dead. It took me 3 hours to hack into my old email account using a password recovery method I had set up years ago. I found them, the board presentations, the reports that Gerald had shown to justify firing me. My blood turned to ice. Every single document had been altered. My 87% customer satisfaction had been changed to 23%. My sales projections, showing 140% of target, were modified to show only 40%. Positive customer reviews were replaced with scathing complaints. But it was more than just changed numbers. Someone had created entirely fake email chains, messages that appeared to be from me, ignoring urgent client complaints, correspondence where I supposedly dismissed concerns from my team, screenshots of me allegedly refusing to address product defects. None of it was real, but it all had my name on it, my email address, my signature. I compared the metadata on the files. Every single altered document had been modified by the same user account. B. Thompson, Brandon Thompson, my husband. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the cheap desk to steady myself. This wasn't just about firing me. This was systematic, calculated. Brandon had spent 8 months carefully destroying every piece of evidence of my success and replacing it with fabricated failures. I scrolled back through my calendar, my mind racing. 8 months ago was when Brandon had suddenly become interested in my work. He started asking questions about my projects, offering to help with presentations, suggesting he could review my reports before I submitted them to make sure they were perfect. I had thought he was being supportive. He was being a saboteur. And then I remembered. 2 years ago, when I was interviewing with 3 major Silicon Valley firms, Google had offered me a senior product manager position. Apple was interested. A startup backed by a billionaire investor wanted me to lead their entire product division. I had been ready to accept the startup offer. Brandon had convinced me to take the job at his father's company instead. "It's family," he had said. "You'll have job security. We can work together, build something amazing together." It was never about building something together. It was about getting me into a position where they could control me, destroy me. I grabbed my phone to call Brandon. Blocked. I tried his work number. Blocked. I tried emailing him. The message bounced back immediately. I jumped in my car and drove to our house. The house we had bought together 3 years ago. The house where I had planted roses in the garden and painted the bedroom a soft blue and thought I was building a life. The locks were changed. My clothes were in black trash bags on the front lawn. My books, my photos, my entire life thrown out like garbage. Neighbors peered through their curtains, but no one came out to help. No one wanted to get involved. I tried to call Gerald Thompson directly. His assistant answered, "Mr. Thompson is not accepting calls from you. You've been removed from all company contact lists. Do not call again." I tried emailing him with screenshots of the evidence. My evidence that Brandon had sabotaged me. The email bounced back. I was blacklisted from all company systems. I sat in my car outside the house that used to be mine and understood the full scope of what they had done. They hadn't just fired me. They had systematically destroyed my professional reputation, my marriage, my home, and my ability to defend myself. And I had no idea why. I used my savings, $14,000 I had kept in a separate account from before the marriage, to rent a small studio apartment on the east side of town. The building was old but clean. The landlord, an elderly woman named Barbara, didn't ask too many questions when I paid 3 months up front in cash. For 5 days, I lived on ramen noodles and job applications. I sent out 47 resumes to tech companies across the state. My credentials were strong. 8 years of product management experience, 3 successful product launches, a track record of innovation and customer satisfaction. If they looked at my real record anyway. I got callbacks from 12 companies. The interviews went well. I could see it in their faces. They were impressed. A startup called Innovate Labs called me back for a 3rd interview. The CEO, Jennifer Walsh, was a sharp woman in her 40s who had built her company from nothing. "Rose, I'm going to be honest with you," she said. "You're exactly what we need. Your vision for product development aligns perfectly with our goals. I'd like to offer you a senior product manager position starting Monday. Salary is $120,000 with equity options." I almost cried right there in her office. It was Friday afternoon. I had spent 12 days in hell, but I was climbing out. I was going to rebuild. "I accept," I said. "Thank you. You won't regret this." Jennifer smiled. "I know I won't. HR will send over the paperwork this afternoon. Welcome to the team." I walked back to my apartment, feeling lighter than I had in 2 weeks. I actually hummed in the elevator. Barbara was watering plants in the hallway and smiled at me. "Good news?" she asked. "The best," I said. I got a job. That feeling lasted exactly 4 hours. The certified letter arrived at 6 in the evening. Barbara signed for it and brought it up to my apartment herself, her face worried. "Rose, honey, this looks official. Are you in some kind of trouble?" I opened it with shaking hands. Thompson Industries versus Rose Martinez. Civil lawsuit. Damages requested $2,700,000. The charges made my stomach turn. Theft of trade secrets, breach of confidentiality agreement, corporate espionage. They were claiming I had stolen proprietary technology during my employment and was planning to sell it to competitors. The evidence attached to the complaint was extensive. Documents with my signature authorizing the download of protected files, screenshots of me allegedly communicating with rival companies, bank records supposedly showing payments from competitors into an offshore account. Every single piece of evidence was fabricated, but it looked real. It looked damning, and there was more. Gerald hadn't just filed the lawsuit quietly. He had issued a press release. I found it online within minutes. Thompson Industries takes legal action against former employee for alleged corporate espionage. The press release was picked up by Tech Industry Daily, Innovation News, and half a dozen industry blogs. My name was now publicly associated with corporate theft. My phone rang. Jennifer Walsh. "Rose, I'm so sorry. I just saw the news. We can't move forward with your employment. The legal liability is too great. If you're involved in litigation over trade secrets, we can't risk having you work on our proprietary technology. I hope you understand." "Jennifer, it's not true. I'm being framed." "I believe you might be, but our lawyers advised us we can't take the risk." "I'm sorry." She hung up. Over the next 2 days, every other company that had been interested suddenly went silent. My LinkedIn profile was flooded with comments. People I had never met calling me a thief, a traitor, demanding I be banned from the industry. Former colleagues from Thompson Industries posted public statements distancing themselves from me. "I always knew something was off about her," one wrote. "She seemed trustworthy, but you never really know people," another posted. My professional reputation was obliterated. I tried calling lawyers. The first 3 wanted retainers of $50,000. The fourth laughed when I told him I had $14,000 total to my name. "You need a public defender, sweetheart. This is way out of your league." I applied for legal aid. The waiting list was 6 months long. The preliminary hearing was scheduled in 3 weeks. I got a job at an all-night diner called Rosie's. The irony wasn't lost on me. I worked the graveyard shift, 11 at night until 7 in the morning. The tips were terrible. I made maybe $60 a night after splitting with the other waitress, but it kept me fed and kept the rent paid. During the day, I slept 4 hours and then spent the rest of my time trying to build a legal defense. I had my evidence of Brandon's sabotage. I had the original files. I had timestamps and metadata, but I had no lawyer to present it. And I was running out of time. The preliminary hearing was on a Wednesday morning. I wore the only professional outfit I still owned, a navy suit I had grabbed from the trash bags Brandon left on the lawn. It was wrinkled, but I had ironed it as best I could with the cheap iron from the dollar store. I represented myself because I had no choice. I had compiled my evidence into a binder, printed copies of the original reports, screenshots showing Brandon's alterations, metadata proving the timeline of the sabotage. Truth would prevail. It had to. Gerald Thompson arrived with 3 corporate attorneys, each carrying leather briefcases that probably cost more than my car. Brandon walked beside his father, wearing an expensive charcoal suit and aviator sunglasses. He didn't look at me. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled walls, an American flag in the corner. Judge Patricia Crane presided, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if there is sufficient cause to proceed to trial, Judge Crane announced. Mr. Whitfield, you may present for the plaintiff. Marcus Whitfield, Gerald's lead attorney, stood. He was tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of corporate espionage. The defendant, Rose Martinez, systematically stole proprietary information during her employment with Thompson Industries with the intent to sell said information to competitors. Your Honor, may I respond? I stood up. Judge Crane looked annoyed. You'll have your turn, Miss Martinez. Sit down. Saturday. Whitfield presented their fabricated evidence. The documents with my forged signature, the fake email chains, the screenshots. He made it sound ironclad, devastating. Your Honor, may I present my evidence? I asked when he finished. You may, Judge Crane said, still looking irritated. I opened my binder. Your Honor, I have evidence that these documents were fabricated by Brandon Thompson, my estranged husband. The metadata on the files shows they were altered by his user account. I have the original versions of all reports, which show my actual performance was exemplary. I have timestamps proving the modifications occurred after I submitted the originals. I tried to hand my binder to the bailiff to give to the judge. Objection, Your Honor, Whitfield said smoothly. The defense is attempting to introduce evidence that has not been properly disclosed or authenticated. Sustained, Judge Crane said immediately. Miss Martinez, you cannot simply bring random documents to a hearing without proper procedure. But, Your Honor, this proves I was sabotaged. That's for a trial to determine, if we proceed to trial. Do you have anything else? I noticed something then. A quick glance between Judge Crane and Marcus Whitfield. A barely perceptible nod. They knew each other. Not just professionally. There was familiarity there. Your Honor, I have more evidence, I said, my voice shaking. I can prove systematic fraud by the plaintiff. You'll have opportunity to present a defense at trial if this proceeds. Mr. Whitfield, do you have additional evidence? We do, Your Honor. Whitfield gestured to his associate, who set up a laptop. We have video evidence of the defendant downloading protected files to an external drive. They played the video. It showed someone at my desk, my name placard clearly visible, inserting a USB drive into the computer. The figure's face was partially obscured, but the hair color matched mine. The clothing looked like something I would wear. It wasn't me. But I couldn't prove it in that moment. The video had to be doctored. Deepfake technology was good enough now to create convincing footage. But without an expert to analyze it, without time to investigate, I had nothing. Your Honor, that video is fabricated, I said desperately. Can you prove that right now? Judge Crane asked. I need time to have it analyzed by an expert. Then that's a matter for trial. I've seen enough. Judge Crane shuffled her papers. I find there is sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Trial date is set for 8 weeks from today. The defendant will surrender her passport and will be fitted with an electronic monitoring device to ensure she does not flee the jurisdiction. Bail is set at $500,000. Your Honor, I can't possibly afford that. Then you'll wear the monitor. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out of the courthouse in a daze. Within 2 hours, a probation officer fitted me with an ankle monitor, a black plastic band with a blinking light that would track my every movement. I returned to my apartment feeling defeated, humiliated, trapped. An envelope was wedged in my doorframe. No postage, no return address, hand-delivered. Inside was a USB drive and a note written in neat handwriting. "They're all connected. Follow the money. You're not the first. A friend." I stared at the USB drive for a long moment, paranoid it might be another trap. But what did I have to lose at this point? I plugged it into my laptop. The files took my breath away. Financial records, spreadsheets detailing offshore accounts, wire transfers, tax documents, 5 years of meticulously documented financial crimes. Gerald Thompson had been embezzling from his own company. $12 million, siphoned off gradually through fake vendor contracts and consulting fees paid to shell companies. The money was laundered through accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. But there was more, much more. Payment records showing regular transfers from Gerald Thompson to a company called Crane Consulting Services. The owner of Crane Consulting was listed as Robert Crane. A quick internet search showed Robert Crane was married to Judge Patricia Crane, $200,000 over 3 years. Obvious bribes disguised as consulting fees. More payments to Whitfield and Associates, far exceeding any reasonable legal retainer. Marcus Whitfield was on Gerald's payroll beyond his role as attorney. And then the final piece. Internal memos discussing a contingency plan. If the embezzlement was ever discovered, Brandon was designated as the scapegoat. He would take the fall. The documents showed Brandon was aware of this arrangement and accepted it in exchange for eventually inheriting the company. But the plan had evolved. According to a memo dated 9 months ago, they needed a better distraction. Someone whose downfall would dominate headlines and draw attention away from any financial irregularities. Someone connected to the family whose betrayal would make a compelling story. Family member by marriage ideal, the memo read. Betrayal narrative will overshadow investigation. Recommend termination of RM with prejudice. Create documentation of malfeasance. RM. Rose Martinez. Me. They had chosen me specifically because destroying me would create a scandal big enough to bury their crimes. I sat back, my mind reeling. This wasn't just about one corrupt CEO. This was a network. Judge Crane was bought. The lawyer was bought. My husband was complicit, and I was the sacrifice. But now, I had proof. I copied the files to 3 separate drives. I put one in a safety deposit box at a bank across town. I mailed one to myself at a P.O. box I rented, and I took the 3rd to the FBI field office downtown. Special Agent Carol Reeves met with me in a small interview room. She was in her 40s, professional, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "What brings you in today, Miss Martinez?" she asked. "Corporate fraud, embezzlement, judicial corruption, all documented." I handed her the USB drive. She plugged it into her computer and spent 20 minutes reviewing the files. Her expression never changed, but I could see her fingers tapping more urgently as she scrolled through the evidence. "This is significant," she finally said. "Where did you obtain this?" "It was delivered anonymously. I don't know by whom." "And you're currently being sued by Thompson Industries?" "Yes, for trade secrets theft, which is completely fabricated, and I believe this evidence shows why. They're framing me to distract from their own crimes." Agent Reeves nodded slowly. "This will require investigation. These are serious allegations involving a federal judge, among others. I need you to not discuss this with anyone. Don't mention that you've been to the FBI. Don't tell anyone about these files. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. We'll be in touch. It may take some time. These investigations move carefully." I left the FBI building feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. 3 days passed. I worked my shifts at the diner. I checked my ankle monitor in every morning at the probation office. I waited for Agent Reeves to call. On the 4th day, 2 different FBI agents showed up at my apartment. Not Agent Reeves. These were men. Younger. Aggressive. "Rose Martinez, we need you to come with us," the taller one said. "Why? What's happening?" "You're under investigation for illegally obtaining classified financial documents and potential computer hacking crimes." My world tilted. "What?" "No. I brought those documents to you, to Agent Reeves." "Where did you obtain the documents?" "I told Agent Reeves. They were delivered anonymously." "We find that unlikely. We need to confiscate your electronics for analysis." They took my laptop, my phone, the USB drive I had kept. They left me with a card with a case number and walked out. I stood in my empty apartment and understood. Gerald's reach extended into the FBI. Agent Reeves had either been pressured or had never intended to help me in the first place. The system wasn't broken. The system was working exactly as Gerald Thompson had designed it. My court-appointed attorney finally showed up 6 days later. His name was Paul Brennan. He was in his 50s, overweight, with a coffee stain on his tie and an air of exhaustion that seemed permanent. We met in a conference room at the public defender's office. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The table was scarred with initials carved into the wood. "All right, Miss Martinez. I've reviewed your case," Paul said, shuffling through papers. "I'm going to be straight with you. You're in serious trouble. I'm innocent. I'm being framed. Maybe you are. But here's the reality. You're facing civil litigation for $2.7 million. You're under federal investigation for document theft and hacking. And you're going up against one of the most powerful men in this state. I have evidence that I was sabotaged. Evidence that's currently in FBI custody and may be inadmissible since it was potentially obtained illegally." Paul leaned back in his chair. "Let me tell you what I know about Gerald Thompson. He sits on the board of directors for 3 Fortune 500 companies. He's donated millions to political campaigns. Judge Crane's son works at one of the companies where Gerald is on the board. The district attorney prosecuting your federal case? Gerald donated $200,000 to his campaign last year. So the whole system is corrupt. The whole system is connected. And you're not." Paul pulled out a document. "I negotiated a plea deal. You plead guilty to reduced charges, 5 years probation, restitution of $1.2 million, which you can pay off over time, and you agree to a permanent ban from working in the tech industry." I stared at him. "You want me to plead guilty to crimes I didn't commit, pay over $1 million I don't have, and destroy my career? I want you to avoid prison. Because if you go to trial, they will destroy you. They'll push for 10 years in federal prison, and they'll win." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've seen how this works. Power protects power. You don't have power. You don't have money. You don't have connections. All you have is the truth, and in this system, that's not enough. I won't plead guilty to something I didn't do." Paul sighed. "Then prepare for prison. The trial is in 7 weeks. Think about it." He stood up. "I'll check in with you next week." He left me sitting in that gray room under the flickering lights. I walked back to my apartment as the sun set. My ankle monitor chafed against my skin. I had $400 in my bank account. My waitress job fired me 3 days ago because I couldn't work enough shifts with all the court appearances. When I opened my apartment door, there was an eviction notice taped to it. I was 3 days late on rent. Barbara had given me as much grace as she could, but she had bills too. I had 72 hours to pay or vacate. I sat on the floor of my empty apartment. No job, no money, no prospects, under federal investigation, facing prison, betrayed by my husband, abandoned by the legal system, and completely, utterly alone. For the first time since this nightmare began, I broke down completely. I sobbed until my chest ached, until my throat was raw, until there were no tears left. This was rock bottom. The phone rang. The cheap prepaid phone I had bought after the FBI took my smartphone. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Rose Martinez? A woman's voice. Professional. Controlled. Yes. My name is Diana Hart. We've never met, but I sent you that USB drive. I was Gerald Thompson's Vice President of Operations from 2010 to 2021. He destroyed me 3 years ago using the exact same playbook he's using on you. I've been building evidence ever since. Meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop on 6th and Main. 10 in the morning. Come alone. We're going to burn them down. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, holding the phone. I didn't know if this was hope or another trap. I didn't know if I could trust anyone anymore. But I knew I couldn't give up. Not yet. I set my alarm for 8 in the morning and lay down on the floor, too exhausted to even make it to the bed. Tomorrow, I would find out if salvation was real or if I was walking into one more betrayal. The coffee shop on 6th and Main was called The Daily Grind. It was one of those trendy places with exposed brick walls and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat in the back corner where I could see the door. Diana Hart walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. She was striking, probably in her mid-50s, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob. She wore a black pantsuit that looked expensive, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. She ordered a coffee and sat down across from me without introduction. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. "Thanks. I mean it as a compliment. You look like someone who's been through hell. That's good. That means you're angry. Anger is fuel. Who are you?" "I told you on the phone. I was Gerald's right hand for 12 years. I knew everything about that company, how it ran, where the money went, where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking." She took a sip of her coffee. 3 years ago, I discovered his embezzlement scheme. I confronted him privately, thinking he would quietly step down or make restitution. Instead, he fired me, claimed I had been falsifying expense reports, sued me for $300,000, destroyed my reputation industry-wide. I lost my job. My marriage fell apart from the stress. I lost my house. I ended up living in a 400-square-foot studio apartment, working as an office temp to survive. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me focused. Diana pulled out a tablet. I spent 3 years documenting everything, every financial crime, every bribe, every person in his network. I worked minimum wage during the day and investigated at night. I tracked down 7 other people Gerald destroyed the same way. 2 committed suicide, 3 left the state and started over with new identities. 1 is in prison for crimes he didn't commit. 1, like me, decided to fight back. She turned the tablet toward me. The screen showed organizational charts, financial networks, names and faces connected by lines. This is Gerald's power structure. 18 people. Judges, lawyers, politicians, business leaders, all connected, all compromised, all protecting each other. Why are you telling me this? Because I have all the evidence. All the documentation, 3 years of work, but I can't use it. I'm too old, too tired, and too burned out. Nobody will listen to someone who's been out of the industry for years. I tried going to the media. They won't touch it without corroboration from someone current. I tried law enforcement. You see how that worked out. She leaned forward. But you're perfect. You're current. You're sympathetic. Young, smart, clearly wronged. And most importantly, Gerald is actively destroying you right now. That makes you relevant. That makes you newsworthy. What are you proposing? We don't fight them in their rigged system. We don't play their game. We out-innovate them and destroy them in the marketplace. Then, when they're weak and desperate, we go public with everything and let market forces and public opinion do what the courts won't. She pulled out more documents, product specifications, patent applications, beta test results. I've been developing technology for 3 years, a luxury smart home integration system that makes everything currently on the market look like a toy. I have working prototypes. I have patents filed in my name alone. I have beta testers who are begging to buy it, but I can't launch it alone. I need someone with product management expertise, someone who knows how to bring a product to market, someone who has nothing left to lose. I looked at the specifications. The technology was incredible. Seamless integration across every major platform, intuitive AI learning, security protocols that were years ahead of the industry standard, voice activation that actually worked, energy efficiency that would cut home power bills by 30%. It was revolutionary. Why me specifically? Because Gerald trained you. You know how he thinks. You know how Thompson Industries operates. You know their weaknesses. And because you're angry enough to see this through, I'm broke. I'm under investigation. I'm wearing an ankle monitor. I can't even afford a lawyer, let alone fund a tech startup. Diana smiled for the first time. Leave that to me. I have resources. What resources? You said you were working temp jobs. I was. Past tense. 6 months ago, I won a settlement from a different lawsuit, unrelated to Gerald, a former employer who had legitimately discriminated against me. $800,000. I've been waiting for the right moment and the right partner to use it. That's not nearly enough to launch a tech company. No, but it's enough to get us to the person who has the real money. Diana pulled out a business card, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Evelyn Cross, billionaire tech investor. She was one of Gerald's first victims 30 years ago when she was just starting out. He stole technology from her, patented it in his name, and made millions. She went on to make billions doing something else, but she never forgot. I approached her 2 months ago with this plan. She's interested, but she wants to meet you first. My head was spinning. This is insane. Yes, it absolutely is. Which is exactly why it might work. Even if we could pull this off, there's no way to launch in time to compete with Thompson Industries. They're releasing their new smart home system in 6 weeks. That announcement is their major fourth-quarter play. By the time we could bring a product to market, they'll have dominated the space. Then we launch in 4 weeks. Right before their announcement, we steal their thunder and their market share simultaneously. 4 weeks is impossible. Then make the impossible happen. That's what Gerald should have let you do instead of destroying you. I looked at this woman, this stranger who was offering me salvation or another disaster. I couldn't tell which. But I knew one thing. I had nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. What do I need to do? Pack a bag. We're meeting Evelyn in 2 hours. Evelyn Cross lived in a mansion in the hills overlooking the city, the kind of house you see in magazines, modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, probably 20,000 square feet. She met us in a sitting room that was bigger than my entire apartment. She was in her 60s, elegant, with silver hair and eyes that evaluated me like a balance sheet. "Rose Martinez," she said. "Diana tells me Gerald Thompson destroyed you." "Yes, ma'am. Tell me why you think you can beat him." I spent an hour telling her everything: the sabotage, the lawsuit, the corruption network, my background, my skills, what I thought I could bring to a product launch. When I finished, Evelyn was silent for a long moment. "I'm willing to invest $5 million, she finally said, "but there's a condition. You have to launch in 3 weeks, not 4. Thompson Industries moved up their announcement. If we don't beat them to market, this entire plan fails. 3 weeks is genuinely impossible." "Then you're not the right person for this." Evelyn stood up. "Diana, I appreciate you bringing this to me, but I'm not interested in funding something that will fail." "Wait." I stood up too. I didn't say I wouldn't do it. I said it was impossible. But I've built my entire career on doing what other people said couldn't be done. If you're willing to trust me, I'll make it happen." Evelyn studied me for a long moment. Then she smiled. "That's what I wanted to hear. Welcome to Apex Horizon Technologies. You're the CEO? Diana is COO? I'm board chair. We launch in 3 weeks. Don't disappoint me." She walked out of the room. Diana grinned at me. "Congratulations. You just signed up for the hardest 3 weeks of your life." She had no idea how right she was. We set up operations in an old warehouse space on the industrial side of town. Evelyn's money came through immediately, $5 million in the Apex Horizon business account. We hired 12 people in the first week, all former Thompson Industries employees, all people who had been fired or mistreated, all hungry for revenge. Sarah and Michael handled software development. Priya managed hardware integration. James led quality testing. Everyone worked 18-hour days. I led product management while juggling everything else: court appearances, ankle monitor check-ins, trying to keep my federal investigation from imploding everything. Diana handled operations with terrifying efficiency. She managed vendors, suppliers, manufacturing partners. She knew every contact in the industry. We worked around the clock. I slept 4 hours a night on a cot in the warehouse office. I lived on coffee and takeout. I showered at the gym down the street. But it was working. The product was coming together. Beta testers loved it. Pre-orders were set to go live in 72 hours. Media was reaching out for interviews. The buzz was building. I felt alive for the first time in 6 weeks. This was who I was. This was what I was meant to do. We were going to win. 56 hours before launch, Brandon showed up at the warehouse. I was testing the interface on our luxury smart home system when he walked through the door flanked by 2 men in suits. Everyone stopped working. "Rose," Brandon said. His voice was cold, professional, nothing like the man I had married. "I'm here on behalf of Thompson Industries with a cease and desist order. You are using proprietary technology developed during your employment. You are infringing on patents held by Thompson Industries. You must halt all operations immediately." I walked over calmly. "Show me the patents." He handed over documents. I read through them carefully. Patent numbers, filing dates, technology descriptions. "These patents were filed 4 months ago," I said. "The technology described in these patents is substantially different from what we're developing. And even if there were similarities, Our system was developed completely independently with proper documentation. Diana, our lawyers are ready for this, correct? Diana appeared beside me. Completely ready. Mr. Thompson, we have 3 intellectual property attorneys who have reviewed every line of code, every hardware specification, and every patent claim. We are not infringing on anything. Your cease and desist has no legal standing. Brandon's jaw tightened. My father will destroy you. Again. I looked him in the eye. Let him try. Brandon stared at me for a long moment. I saw something flicker in his expression. Regret? Guilt? It was gone too quickly to tell. You were always too stubborn, he said quietly. I told you on the phone. I was Gerald's right hand for 12 years. I knew everything about that company. How it ran, where the money went, where the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking. She took a sip of her coffee. 3 years ago, I discovered his embezzlement scheme. I confronted him privately, thinking he would quietly step down or make restitution. Instead, he fired me, claimed I had been falsifying expense reports, sued me for $300,000. He turned and walked out. But I knew that wasn't the end. That was a warning shot. The real attack came 36 hours before launch. Federal agents burst into the warehouse at 7 in the morning, 8 of them, led by 2 prosecutors I had never seen before. Rose Martinez, you're under arrest. They put me in handcuffs in front of my entire team. For what? Wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. They dragged me out while my team watched in horror. They put me in the back of an unmarked car and drove me to the federal courthouse. The charges were insane. They claimed that Evelyn Cross's investment was actually stolen Thompson Industries money that I had embezzled. They had documents showing wire transfers from Thompson Industries accounts to offshore accounts to Evelyn's investment fund. They claimed the entire thing was a money laundering scheme. The documents were fabricated, but they looked real. Bank statements, transfer records, signed authorizations with my forged signature. Bail was set at $2 million. I couldn't make it. They kept me in federal holding. Diana visited me in the holding cell that afternoon. They froze Apex Horizon's accounts, she said. Her voice was shaking. They're claiming the company is part of your criminal enterprise. We can't access any funds. We can't process pre-orders when they go live tomorrow. We can't pay our team. We can't pay our vendors. Tears streamed down her face. Rose, I'm so sorry. It's over. I sat on the concrete bench in the cell. 48 hours of work, years of my career, everything we had built, gone. But it got worse. The next morning, I was brought to another hearing. Brandon and Gerald were there with their lawyers. Your Honor, Marcus Whitfield stood. We're petitioning for an emergency psychological evaluation of the defendant. We have substantial evidence that Miss Martinez has experienced a severe mental breakdown. She's exhibiting paranoid delusions, claiming vast conspiracies against her. She's created an elaborate fantasy involving a fake company as part of her delusional system. We believe she may be a danger to herself and others. They presented affidavits from people I had never met, psychologists claiming I had exhibited signs of mental instability, co-workers from the diner claiming I had seemed unhinged. Even Maya, my former assistant, had signed a statement saying I had seemed paranoid and aggressive in our last phone call. They were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. If they succeeded, I would be involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility. Everything I said would be dismissed as delusions. My testimony would be worthless. Apex Horizon would be dismantled. I would be institutionalized indefinitely. The hearing was scheduled for 3 hours from now. I sat in the holding cell, genuinely terrified for the first time. This wasn't just about destroying my career or my reputation. They were trying to erase my sanity, my identity, my entire sense of self. I had fought so hard, and I was about to lose everything in the most horrifying way possible. Then the cell door opened. Special Agent Carol Reeves stood there. "Rose, I need you to come with me. Now." "What's happening?" "I never stopped investigating. When those other agents came to see you, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't tell you I was still working the case because I was being watched. But I've been building evidence with the Inspector General's office. We have everything: the embezzlement, the bribes, the fabricated evidence against you. All of it." She unlocked my handcuffs. "The charges against you are being dropped. And Rose, we need you to go public with your story tomorrow at your product launch. The more visibility you have, the safer you are. If you're in the public eye, they can't make you disappear." "The launch is canceled. Our accounts are frozen." "No, they're not. The freeze order was issued by a compromised judge. It's been overturned in the last hour. Your accounts are active. Your launch is still on." I stared at her, not sure if this was real or another nightmare. "Your psychological hearing is canceled. You're free to go. We're moving on Gerald Thompson and his network tonight, but we need you visible and public tomorrow. Can you do that?" I took a shaking breath. "Yes." "Then go win." The Apex Horizon launch event was scheduled for 10 in the morning at our warehouse headquarters. We had transformed the space overnight. Product displays, demo stations, a small stage where I would present. 50 media outlets showed up: technology reporters, industry analysts, business journalists, even a few national news crews. I walked out onto the stage wearing a simple black dress Diana had bought for me. My hands were shaking. I had barely slept in 48 hours. "Good morning," I said into the microphone. "My name is Rose Martinez, and I'm the CEO of Apex Horizon Technologies. Before I show you our product, I need to tell you a story." I told them everything. Being fired without cause, Brandon's sabotage, the fabricated lawsuit, the corruption network, Judge Crane's bribes, the embezzlement, the attempts to destroy me. My voice shook at parts, but I pushed through. The room was silent. Phones were recording. Cameras were rolling. They thought destroying me would save them. They thought I would disappear quietly, but they made one mistake. I paused. They underestimated me. I unveiled the Apex Horizon Luxury Smart Home System. The demo ran flawlessly. The technology spoke for itself. Revolutionary, beautiful, affordable. The reporters exploded with questions. And then, visible through the warehouse windows, we saw the helicopters. News crews capturing footage of FBI agents raiding Thompson Industries headquarters downtown. Gerald Thompson was arrested on camera, hands cuffed behind his back. Perp walked through the lobby. Brandon was arrested at his apartment. Judge Patricia Crane was arrested at her courthouse chambers. Marcus Whitfield was arrested at his law firm. The story went national immediately. Corruption scandal rocks tech industry. CEO and federal judge arrested in embezzlement scheme. Woman they tried to destroy launches competing company same day. Our website crashed from traffic within an hour. 300,000 pre-orders by noon. 800,000 by end of day. $47 million in sales in 24 hours. My phone started ringing that afternoon. I had gotten a new number after the FBI returned my confiscated phone, but somehow Brandon had it. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Over the next 2 days, 69 calls came through. Brandon's number, Gerald's number, both from jail. The voicemails were a journey. First few were desperate. Rose, please. I was forced to do it. My father controlled everything. He threatened to cut me off completely if I didn't help him. I'm sorry. Please, you have to believe me. Then Gerald's voice. Miss Martinez, let's be reasonable adults here. We can settle this situation. Name your price. 10 million? 20 million? I can make this worth your while. More from Brandon. Rose, I loved you. I still love you. This got out of control. I never wanted it to go this far. Please talk to me. We can fix this. Then they got angry. Gerald's voice, vicious. You vindictive woman. You've destroyed an entire family. My son is facing prison because of you. A company that employed 300 people is going under because of your revenge. Do you even care about the lives you're ruining? Brandon, slurred, probably drunk. You always thought you were so smart, so much better than everyone. Look what your pride cost you. Look what it cost us. More desperate pleas. More anger. More attempts at bargaining. The final voicemail came on day 3. Brandon crying, Rose, please. They're saying 30 years. My father is 71. He'll die in prison. I'm 35. I'll be 65 when I get out. Please. I'm begging you. Drop the charges. Talk to the prosecutors. Please. I listened to that last message once. Then I blocked both numbers. I felt nothing but peace. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. Thompson Industries filed for bankruptcy 6 weeks after the arrests. Investors fled. Partners terminated contracts. The company that Gerald had built over 30 years collapsed in less than 2 months. Gerald and Brandon both took plea deals to avoid trial. Gerald received 15 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $30 million in restitution. Brandon received 8 years and was required to testify against his father about the embezzlement scheme. Judge Patricia Crane was disbarred and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Marcus Whitfield lost his law license and received 3 years. My divorce from Brandon was finalized. I kept nothing from the marriage except my maiden name back. I didn't want anything that reminded me of that life. Apex Horizon Technologies was valued at $200 million within 3 months. We had hired 80 employees by month 4. We were negotiating distribution deals with major retailers. Tech publications were calling our smart home system the product of the year. Diana became my closest friend and confidant. We worked together seamlessly. Evelyn became a mentor who taught me how to navigate the business world at the highest levels. I stood in my new corner office overlooking the city on a Thursday afternoon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I had a product launch meeting in the morning, a board meeting in the afternoon, interviews with 3 major publications next week. I thought about the woman who had walked out of that boardroom 6 weeks ago with 1 suitcase and $300. The woman who had been fired, betrayed, destroyed, and left with nothing. I thought about what I had learned. They thought destroying me would save them. But destruction is only permanent if you accept it. I refused to accept it. I learned that injustice often wins in the short term. Corrupt people with power and money can manipulate systems designed to protect us. They can buy judges and lawyers. They can fabricate evidence. They can make innocent people look guilty. But truth has a longer timeline. Truth is patient. And if you refuse to quit, if you keep fighting, if you find the right allies and the right moment, truth eventually breaks through. I learned that betrayal reveals who people always were, not who they became. Brandon wasn't corrupted by his father. He was always capable of that cruelty. I had just chosen not to see it. But I also learned that loyalty exists. Diana found me when I had nothing. Evelyn invested in me when I was wearing an ankle monitor and facing prison. Agent Reeves kept investigating when it would have been easier to look away. 12 employees joined a company that might not exist in a month because they believed in the mission. I learned that the empire you build inside yourself, the strength and resilience and refusal to surrender, that's the only empire that can never be taken away. They fired me thinking it would end me. Instead, it freed me to become who I was always meant to be. I built something better. I built something that couldn't be corrupted or destroyed because it was founded on truth and built by people who refused to quit. I turned away from the window and went back to my desk. I had work to do, products to develop, a company to grow, a future to build. And this time, nobody could fire me from my own life. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to rebuild? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you hope or reminded you of your own strength, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because I'll be sharing more stories of people who refuse to stay down. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they can overcome anything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, they can take your job, your reputation, even your freedom for a while, but they can never take your determination to rise again. Stay strong out there. You're more powerful than you know.